From the Toronto Star, I'm Raju Mudhar, and this matters. As much of Ontario enters phase 2 of reopening, you probably need to go out and get a haircut. Or run out and buy something you've been waiting to get. Since consumer sales make up a huge part of the national GDP, it's been said that as retail goes, so goes the economy. During this pandemic, we have already seen high-profile Canadian retailers like Sail close some stores and Aldo file for bankruptcy protection. Brands like Canada Goose lay off 125 people, and many beloved small businesses decide that now is the time to pack it in forever. Shout out to Gandhi Roadie, which announced it too will sadly be closing its doors soon. There have been some positives. Everything has moved online. We've seen some businesses adapt and repurpose product lines, and this pandemic has finally loosened some rules for other products, like takeaway and delivery booths from restaurants and legal weed delivered straight to your door. The road ahead for retail will not be easy, but there may be more opportunities to innovate, embrace technology, and personalize the experience even further for consumers. Although, let's hope a Minority Report ad-chasing future is still a ways off.
The road you're on, John Anderton, is the one less traveled. Make sure you follow
Good evening. You can move the old-fashioned
John Anderton.
provides gourmet cuisine. John Anderton. You could use a Guinness right about now.
Hey, John Anderton, forget your troubles.
It's already getting tough for frontline retail staff, who, despite being very recently hailed as heroes, are about to lose their pandemic pay. The bottom line is retail is going to look very different going forward. Diane J. Brisebois is the president and CEO of the Retail Council of Canada. She joins us today to talk about the outlook for retail in Canada and what's next. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Diane, we're at the point where jurisdictions are just about to reopen, but there's already been some devastating effects and some high-profile closures in the retail space. I know it's a big question because there are so many sectors that make up retail, but how would you characterize the mood of your member base right now?
I would say that the mood in retail right now is mixed. And I say that because throughout the COVID crisis, there were two realities. Those realities were essential retailer or not essential retailer. So if you were an essential retailer, such as grocery or drug chains, for example, you did fairly well considering the challenges you were operating under to ensure, health and safety. If you were a non-essential retailer, these have been extremely difficult times. And especially if you were reliant heavily on your brick and mortar stores. As you noted, and as most people know, in most regions of the country, the stores were closed. Some regions have reopened, but others, in fact, the two largest retail markets in the country, Quebec and Ontario, are just starting to open. So it has been extremely challenging for most non-essential retailers.
Up until now, I think it's really been about surviving, particularly for those non-essentials. How do you feel about the government response so far?
The government response has been very good so far. I think we cannot criticize the government, both federal and provincial governments, for stepping up and putting the types of programs and resources in place to help small businesses and to help employees. So to help employers keep their employees on the payroll, or certainly for those who were furloughed or laid off, to provide additional financial support. Where we think the government, especially from a retail sector specific, if we're looking at it from a retail sector specific problem or challenge, where we think the government could have done better is in developing more resources to keep retailers whole while their businesses were shut down. The restaurant industry may say the same, but as you know, they introduced a rent program, a rent subsidy program, but it was for much smaller businesses, and it excluded a large number of retailers who, because of COVID, had to close their businesses entirely. And we think that the government missed an opportunity to support a key sector. I think, a lot of people don't realize there are over 2.1 million people who work in retail who rely on retail stores being open to work and to make a living. And so having to close your stores for 3 months, not getting any sales, any activity, or a small amount via online sales just increases your chances of not being able to survive. And we think that that was a missed opportunity. And the reason why I say that is also because there are so many other sectors that rely on retail operating well and profitably. That includes transportation, so all of logistics, distribution centers, manufacturers, advertisers, IT, marketing, construction. I mean, the list goes on. So it continues to be a great concern to us.
I think one of the somewhat positive things that we saw was how a lot of companies adapted. We saw businesses shift product lines, restaurant do takeout, the delivery of basically everything. Physical distancing is now the norm. Obviously, I think a lot of these things are going to stick around, but as we sort of settle into this new normal, what do you think we're going to see?
The one thing about retail is that it is resilient, even under extremely difficult circumstances. So we have seen and we will continue to see consumers shop online. It went from about 7% of total retail sales to close to 15% of total retail sales within 3 months. That's the kind of growth you would expect over a year and a half to 2 years. So it was quite amazing. So we've seen that. We've seen also retailers look at their product assortment and realize that consumers' lifestyles had changed and would continue to change. They wouldn't be buying the same thing. So you can think of fashion being one. All of a sudden people, we've talked about the casual trend. It now is part of the way we live because most of us had to stay home. So we're not dressing up as much. You look at baking, which has become one of the hottest pastimes. So the products associated with that. So what retailers have had to do is look at how COVID has affected and will continue to affect people's lifestyles. And they've changed or their product assortment, or they've included new products to their line. They've certainly have been investing as much as they can, depending on the cash available to them, in new technology. And that will both increase online activity, but it will also increase, we believe, that special experience in store. We're hearing about augmented reality, artificial intelligence. So let me give you an example. If you're going into a beauty product store where you would usually sample a product, so that may be eyeshadow, it may be blush, it may be makeup. That is not going to happen going forward. You're not going to have open containers of products that people can touch and feel. And so retailers are becoming very innovative, and they are using technology to install screens in their stores so that you can have a virtual experience, so that your image would appear on the screen and you can choose the kind of product that you want to try on your skin to see what it would look like. So it's nearly a mirror of you, if you know what I mean. And that's something people used to think about and talk about, and now we're seeing it happen. And that is also going to change that brick and mortar experience in the store. And it's not just in beauty products. We're seeing it across a range of different products.
As an aside, I really need some shoes. So, I mean, this is one of these things right now, I'm a tech guy. I use VR and I'm super curious about that, but there's still something, and I know people who buy them online and I know my size, but this is one thing that I still want to go and try it on in a store first.
And you'll be able to. It's just that there will be in a different environment. And I'm happy to hear that you want to go out and buy shoes. And please do. But what you will see is that retailers are taking physical distancing very seriously, as well as the health and safety of both their employees and customers. So you'll see sanitation stations in and around the store. You'll see employees cleaning, surfaces on a regular basis. You'll be sitting down in a chair that may very well be leather versus a fabric, because leather is easier to wipe and clean. You'll be given a disposable socket that you'll put on. The sales associate will provide the box. You'll open the box. You will try the shoes. And if you don't like the shoes or they don't fit as well as you'd like them to, they will be returned to the box and put in quarantine for a period of time, and then you will try another pair. And assuming you like the pair of shoes you tried on and it fits, you will be asked to take the shoes and the box back to the counter to pay for it. So the interaction will be different. What we have seen, though, is retailers are becoming creative about your experience in that store. So even though there will be physical distancing, there'll be a lot more visuals in the store about the shoe, how the shoe is made, where the shoe comes from. So we've even seen retailers starting to integrate education, not only about where the product comes from, but how to make sure that the shoe lasts longer, how it can be clean. Those are things that, someone would tell you at the end of the purchase. We're seeing retailers becoming more creative and adding those elements virtually. So you're kind of sitting in a studio, and while you're trying shoes or waiting for your shoes, you're learning more about what the shoe does to your foot, and so on and so forth. We've been working with the Boston Consulting Group in our Retail Recovery Playbook. Because of their practices around the world, they've been able to bring back some amazing best practices or new best practices from retailers. So I think that is what you can expect to see more and more now when you go into a physical store.
That's a great segue into my next question, because one of the things that I've read is that self-checkout is booming right now. And I'm super curious if we're going to see some trends from other places. Asia obviously is very forward, and one of the things is they have vending machines for everything, but also in sort of their automated self-checkout stuff, there's bins where basically you put it in and everything has RFID scans. Do you think we're going to see some of that type of innovation as well?
Yes, we are going to see some of that tech innovation, but it will, and when I say but, I don't mean that it's negative. I think it's amazing, the innovation we're going to see in tech and how it's integrated in retail, but it applies to different formats. You as a consumer will choose the kind of experience you want depending on the store and the purchase you're making. In some cases, you want to get in and you want to get out. You don't need or don't want to have to interact. You have very few questions to ask, very little information that's required for you to make that purchase decision. That's where that kind of technology fits extremely well. So think mass merchants, some food categories where there's staple products, for example, and let your imagination go in all sorts of different places. And yet there are other environments where it will be technology, but maybe not that non-human technology. There will still be a lot of human interaction. So fashion is one area where, in fact, customers are expecting it and want it. So technology will be integrated in the experience, but very differently than it would be in the example we were just talking about a moment ago. The technology is an amazing enabler. The important thing, and we're seeing it in Europe and in Asia in particular, retailers are very smart in how they're integrating that new technology, and it's very much based on studying the consumer and understanding the kind of experience that consumer wants. Because there's still an element of shopping, again, depending on the product you're purchasing, where the customer wants that interaction with a human being, wants to touch the product, feel the product, look at a variety of products, ask questions, and so on and so on. So what will be interesting in Canada is to see how these new innovative technologies are integrated in different retail formats.
We talked about tech. Let's talk about people. What about staffing? A lot of people have lost their jobs already. They're furloughed or they're just waiting. Is the hope that the reopening will reverse this trend, or are you bracing for a long, slow recovery?
I wish I could say that things will go back to normal, but I think I would be lying. This is going to be challenging, and it will be a slow recovery for most retailers for several reasons. So we talked about online. So if your business was doing 10% of its volume online, it is now going to do 35% of its business online. The one thing you're going to do is sit back and determine how much real estate you need. Unless your business has grown by 35%, meaning you have 35% more business, then you might be looking at your real estate and saying, it's perfect because my customer base is growing both in store and online. But for a lot of retailers, they are going to be looking at their assets, specifically their brick and mortar stores, and they will decide to shrink that footprint. I'm not saying it will happen for all, but certainly many are already talking about that. So that means less employees if you have less stores. In other cases, it will be, do I just have a couple stores and they become kind of my brand story, my media outlet, and do I rely more on my digital presence and online? And do I build my online presence so that it becomes the greater part of my business? And that has obviously employee implications. And then the third one is for retailers who still will have large brick and mortar footprints. It will be how much technology that they integrate in the store that may eliminate the traditional role of an employee. And so that's still to be seen, but we're seeing it currently in some stores, as you said, where self-checkout is becoming more and more popular. And so, if anyone was to tell you that there will be the same number of people working in retail a year from now, I think that they would be off completely. There is absolutely no question that we think that there will be a shrinking of the workforce for all of those issues. And I think the last one, which is the important one, is also the financial health of consumers. Consumers, there may be a pent-up demand as stores reopen and as people are allowed to go out and do the things that they want to do. But Canadians right now have less financial means than they did a year ago. And so they will probably be spending less on discretionary items, and that will have an impact on the number of retailers that can continue to operate. If you add all of that up, that allows you to believe that, in fact, there will be a shrinking of the workforce.
What do you think homegrown retailers can do to weather the storm?
The number one is out of their control, but it's governments working very hard on increasing testing, on ensuring that people can go back to do the things that they want to do on a daily basis in society, opening malls, opening stores. That is number one. Number two, retailers have to be extremely innovative and creative. If you have not made a serious commitment and investment in your digital business and your digital presence, it's not, well, I should do it, is you must do it. And so retailers, regardless if they're domestic retailers or international retailers in Canada, you have to be very strong in all the different channels that consumers use to shop your products. Retailers who survive, and I believe there will be many, will also understand that consumers want them to be transparent. They want them to be accountable. They want them to be involved in community. That will be extremely important. Is how do I become part of the community? How do I make a difference in the community? How do I show customers that it is worth making an investment in me, in my business, in my employees? That will be more important than ever before. And finally, I've said many times, health and safety is the new black. It is about showing and demonstrating that you are taking all the precautions possible to ensure a safe environment for your customers and employees, and to continue to do that, to continue to provide the best service in an environment that has changed forever.
Diane, this has been fabulous for us. You just told us what the stores can do. I'm going to flip that to you. What can consumers do? And is it as simple as buying stuff?
I got to tell you, I'm a consumer, as we all are, and I am still shocked how many people still go shopping. I was in a grocery store, and I couldn't believe how many people were not wearing face coverings. And I thought, it is so easy, and it's so much safer. You are protecting yourself, and you're protecting others. I'm surprised at how often we need to be reminded to respect physical distancing, even though there's signage on the floor, signage on the wall, and often messaging from employees. I think as customers and as citizens, it's important for us to be extremely vigilant and to be more than just careful, is to go that extra mile, because we all have a role to play, and we are the ones who can make that recovery stronger and more robust, or in fact create a second wave. So customers make a difference. I would say the first rule, because we are hearing it a lot from our retailers, is that they now feel that they're playing a bit of a police or a public health safety role in reminding people. So that's number one. Number two is just paying attention to your financial well-being. Retailers understand more than anybody else that you need to ensure that you are paying your bills, that you can pay your rent, that you can pay your mortgage, so you do not overspend. You spend smart, you spend well, because if you spend too much, you're not going to be able to spend next year. So what a retailer gets this year, the retailer won't get next year. So that's extremely important. And it's also supporting your local community. And by that, I mean those small businesses that are on Main Street. You know, many times have we said, boy, it's so nice to see these small businesses, oh, this little area, this little neighborhood is so vibrant. And yet we turn around and we rarely shop in those stores. And we'll go to, Amazon or anywhere else to get it because we feel it's more convenient or it's cheaper. And those actions, well, I think anyone could shop anywhere. I think that we need to kind of spread the wealth and ensure that we're supporting those local businesses that are indeed supporting us, because they are paying rent, paying taxes, and employing our kids, our neighbors, our friends. So I think that's extremely important for all of us as customers.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Diane J. Brisebois is the President and CEO of the Retail Council of Canada. That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. This Matters is hosted and produced by me, Raju Mudhar, Adrian Chung, and Saba Etisas. Produced and mixed by Sean Pattenden, and our Director of Programming is JP Foso. Our show theme music is by So Called, and our episode music is by Mike DeAngelis. We want to hear what stories matter to you. Please send us comments, questions, or ideas to thismatters@thestar.ca. Please consider supporting the journalism the Toronto Star newsroom does at thestar.com. And don't forget to subscribe to This Matters on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Let's talk soon.